Welcome back to Just Chattin', and this is the series of videos we do on Thursday and Sunday evenings just for our own entertainment. So for all you Audie fans, yes, he is here. He is running around. In fact, this is my third attempt to film this video because two previous times he just hopped into my lap, got me so distracted that I couldn't even remember what I was saying beforehand. So yeah, I bribed him to stay gone for a couple of minutes with cat treats, and maybe he will. He had a very exciting weekend. A car broke down in front of our house. That meant people were in front of our house. He loves that. That's practically company. It would be great if they would just come into the house, but they didn't. But still, a little cat could go out there and help them fix their car, or at least, wangle a peek into their toolbox, maybe steal something shiny. So he really enjoyed it. He loves company, and he doesn't care what the circumstances are. So he was out most of the morning looking for more company. But alas, the young men had left. Their car got fixed, and they went back home. Poor Audie. I am going to try to cut this video a little short. I know I always say that, and I never manage to do it, but I really am going to try very, very hard today because Easter Sunday, and I know for our friends in Australia, New Zealand, the UK, Europe, etc., it's already Monday, but here in the US, still Sunday evening, so you folks need to go to bed, get up for work early in the morning, after the holiday weekend, so I'm going to do my best to sort of cut this short. So we are going to take a look at the intro and get started when we come back. So let's get started with the sock puppet news. Interesting stuff coming out. Now, this bit of information came out of a publication from New Zealand. And as I've mentioned before, I get my news information from all over the world. And frankly, most of the time, it turns out to be extremely reliable. Let's just throw this in. That article that I had found from the Pakistani publication a couple of weeks ago saying that William was, in fact, working hard to rid the sock puppet of his titles. After that, all of the major publications picked up that story and ran with it. And they are still posting stories today. So I think it pays to be open to all of the news sources available. And I don't often get a chance to use New Zealand sources. I often get a chance to use Australian sources, but New Zealand, not so much. So I was glad to have a story from New Zealand this evening. And they have reported that the sock puppet's attorney, in presenting his case, his appeal for his state-funded high-level security, they've mentioned that he had some kind of credible threat. I don't remember the exact phrasing, but it was a legitimate threat of murder. They did use the M word. From presumably Al-Qaeda, but from some people in the Middle East, and that they said the entire Muslim world would rejoice. Wow. First of all, I have to tell you, let's start off with, that alone should be enough to tell you it's not a credible threat, because the Muslim world is a huge, huge group of people living in many different countries with many different cultural traditions, speaking many different languages, consisting of people of many different races and ethnicities. It is not a solid monolith. It's not. And the idea that the entire Muslim world would rejoice at the murder of someone, anyone, is probably simply not true. Our own common sense should tell us that. And when anyone throws something like this out, yeah, you really got to question who the heck they are speaking for. Those sound like the words of extremists to me. Now, no one said when this threat was received, because, remember, the sock puppet bragged about his alleged military kills when he released his memoirs. Many people at the time said that's going to paint a target on his back. That is going to paint a target on the backs of any British service people. You just don't do that. And people, in fact, don't do that. That is, in military communities, that sort of thing is considered very, very bad form, because I think everyone knows that all you're doing is putting your comrades at risk. All you're doing is putting out the death of the enemy as some kind of achievement, something to be proud of. And there are very few military people who think in those terms. I'm not saying they don't exist, but that's certainly not representative of the average soldier anywhere, anytime, any place. And I do have to wonder about this alleged threat, because was this simply something that was posted online? Is that it? Well, you know, the sock puppet, our bastion of censorship, who is constantly whining about misinformation. Boy, isn't it interesting that if the misinformation is useful to him, he'll jump on it. I do not believe this was a threat. In other words, somebody picked up a pencil, wrote a letter, put a stamp on it, put his address on it, and stuck it in the mail. Do I think that's what happened? No. I think it may have been some loose chatter on the internet. But quite frankly, I spend a lot of time on the internet, and I can absolutely tell you that in 30 seconds flat, I can find you at least 3 chat groups talking about life on Zeta Reticuli. The internet is not a reliable source of information, period. So I got major questions about that. But it is interesting that his legal team is throwing something like this out. And if, in fact, there was a legitimate threat, again, I don't know. There was not enough information in the article to make that determination. If there was a legitimate threat, and if that threat was not something generated by the sock puppet personally bragging about things that simply should not be mentioned in his memoirs in the first place, and if that threat was made by someone who actually had the capability of carrying it out, and not some kid in his parents' basement, typing on a laptop, well, maybe it did belong before the courts. But I very much doubt any of that is actually what happened. And on top of that, we had a very entertaining little story that came up. I shouldn't call it entertaining. I say that sarcastically. And I want you to understand, I don't find anything funny about this. This story was in the Mirror and the Daily Mail. For some reason, they dug out a film clip from 2018 in which the singer Liam Payne, and he's someone I was not familiar with, he's a British singer, he was quite young, he had performed at an event, and as soon as he stopped singing, the sock puppet said something to Nutmeg, and she just started cracking up laughing, and the two of them are just giggling. And both the Mail and the Mirror had described this as like this sweet thing. No, this is not sweet. This is inappropriate behavior in public. This is something that, good heavens, they, as the media, should have jumped on that at once, called it what it was, which was inappropriate behavior, because that's their job. The reason you have a free press is so they can alert the public to problematic situations before they get out of hand. You know, it's like, come on, you should have been doing your job, guys. The problem with this is Liam Payne died this past November. He was 31 years old, and he apparently just popped off a third-story balcony somewhere. They said, I believe it was Argentina, they said that he was immobilized by the time he hit the ground. He could have been impaired from drugs, alcohol, whatever. He could have been unconscious when he fell. So it could have been something accidental. It wasn't necessarily suicide. Who knows what was going on when this boy fell. 31 years old, this is a tragedy. Absolutely. Surfacing the story within 6 months of his passing, poor taste. Quite frankly, very poor taste. And the idea that you would have a couple of people who were functioning, now this was a state-sanctioned event, so they were functioning pretty much as working royals, giggling like a couple of school children after a singer has just finished the set. Now, this was not funny, this was not sweet, and all that little blurb served to point out to me was exactly how badly the media failed us in keeping us aware of what was going on with these two at some point in time where somebody, anybody, wouldn't have been me, but somebody might have been able to do something to take the edge off whatever was going on so that we wouldn't have all the chaos that we are currently dealing with. So yeah, you know, maybe they should have done a better job of exposing the childish antics of these two. Maybe they should have taken seriously their charge to keep the public informed. All right, that's all I'm going to say on that. YouGov popularity polls have come out, and the sock puppet is one of the lowest ranking members of the royal family in popularity in the UK. He was ranking at 30. That's 30% overall popularity. Very poor showing. And he does better for some reason with millennials than either Gen X, that is the generation, the so-called slacker generation just before the millennials, or Gen Z, which is the generation just after the millennials. I suspect it's because that's his own generation, and that a lot of people, you know, growing up as teenagers, watching his teenage antics could relate to it. But that's just my theory. I have nothing whatsoever to support that. But yeah, popularity is poor, not getting much better. That leads us into Tom Bower. Now, Tom Bower is planning to write another book. I'm delighted. I can hardly wait. And Tom Bower is saying that he believes the sock puppet's current agenda is to worm his way back into the bosom of his family, to go back to the UK and reestablish himself, possibly even as a working royal. I have no problem with Tom Bower's evaluation of this. The man is a very good researcher, and I think he knows what he's talking about. So if he says it, I take it seriously. I would, however, just throw this out. The sock puppet surely knows that his father's health is not good. The sock puppet surely knows that his father is in his mid-70s. The sock puppet surely knows that when the time comes for his father to shuffle off this mortal coil, the door is going to get very firmly slammed in his face by his brother. So, is the sock puppet struggling to get back to the royal family because he wants to reconcile with his former loved ones? Or is he just keenly aware of the fact that if there is anything good being given away, if there is any possibility of making a deal for himself, it's now or never? I would say, yeah, that's probably what's going on. That he clearly understands the window is closing, not for reconciliation, but for whatever else is available, whatever else he can get. Because let's face it, their plan, not Meghan the sock puppet, virtually from the moment they met, and the sock puppet told us that, virtually from the moment they met, was how to take the money and run. So I would have to say, yeah, that's the scenario that makes sense to me. All right, William, yes. Is William going to slam the door on their face? Well, that's what everybody is saying. Absolutely, that is what everybody is saying. And a week ago, it was just that one little obscure Pakistani news outlet that I managed to dig out. No, it's all over all of the major outlets now. Apparently, friends of William, friends of Charles are making it very clear that William is at the end of his patience. So who knows? We'll have to wait and see how this one plays out. Actually, we don't have to wait and see how this one plays out. The last time we saw two Mountbatten-Windsor brothers in the same sort of situation, it was George and Edward, and we all know how that one worked out. So we don't have to see. We've seen it play out already, and I think we all know that William is not going to lose the battle. All right, let's move on to Nutmeg. We had an interesting story come out. I don't know why it's come out now, why it hasn't come out earlier. But there is a British author named Mel Elliot, and she has written a series of books, The Adventures of Pearl. They've all got different titles, but the name Pearl is in all of them. It's about some little female character that she modeled after her own daughter, named Pearl, and the first of these books came out in 2016, so a long time ago. And she has released information indicating that she was very concerned about Nutmeg's Netflix series that never came to be, the animated series about a little girl named Pearl who was going to go back in time and meet famous people or whatever. Nutmeg's nonsense. It was just going to be Nutmeg doing whatever she does to attempt to win the public's love and admiration and make herself look relatable. So, apparently, the ideas behind it were very similar to Mel Elliot's works. And she is now talking rather openly about it. And although she has not used the word plagiarizing, I think it's pretty clear that's what's going on. Now, those of us who have followed Nutmeg for a while know full well this is Nutmeg's MO. She plagiarizes from Eleanor Roosevelt. The miscarriage story in the New York Times was plagiarized from the account of a Canadian woman. The woman steals It's what she does. And we see her do this even now with her Lemonada podcast. Somebody tells a story and she's like, oh, me too. I had preeclampsia. I had miscarriages. My baby almost burned in a fire. We hear this constantly. Anything that's happened to anyone else, and Nutmeg is right there. Me too, me too, me too. And she has no trouble seizing other people's works as her own. We know this. So, is this a surprise to anyone? I don't think so. The only thing I find surprising is the timing of this. But I do have to throw this out. If I were being cynical, which of course I'm not, but if I were, I would say that Mel Elliot probably kept her mouth shut on the theory that if Netflix actually did make the series and she could prove the plagiarism, well, that is a very fat payday in a theft of intellectual property lawsuit. So maybe it's coming out now because she understands the series has been tanked for good. It's never going anywhere. And so there is no pot of gold at the end of the rainbow to protect. Now, I don't know this woman at all. Mel Elliot, I mean. I don't know her. I have no idea what kind of person she is. And perhaps I am being a little harsh. But I do know if I were her, and I don't consider myself to be an exceptionally bad person, but if I were her in her situation, I probably would wait and see if they actually went ahead and made it. Created a series based on someone else's work. I probably would wait it out. Just saying. But it is interesting, given the fact that these works are out, available. It's a British children's series. They are available. The general public can get a copy, read it, see for themselves if that measures up to what Nutmeg's proposed series was. And I don't doubt it. I'm not doubting this because, like I say, if Ms. Elliot is not being honest, well, the public will know soon enough. I'm sure a lot of people will be getting those books, checking it out. And I would say, based on Nutmeg's personal track record, odds are good that she did, in fact, steal this woman's work. One more little bit. Oh, no, two more. Quickly, that same poll that showed the sock puppet with 30% popularity, Nutmeg's was 17. So that's my very quick one. Yeah, anybody surprised by that? I'm not. Final piece. In the video notes, I have linked to a publication that is going to give you direct links to two of the funniest videos I have seen in a long time. And this is Meghan Kelly and Maureen Callahan. Now, we all know Meghan Kelly. She is a presenter, commentator, etc. in the U.S. Maureen Kelly is a columnist, a writer. She's written for a lot of publications. I love her stuff because she's vicious. Okay, she's vicious. I will admit it. I love the fact that she can just stick that knife in between somebody's ribs and twist it. She has a nasty sense of humor. They have done a parody of Nutmeg's With Love, Meghan television show. Check it out. It is a scream. It absolutely is. So that's what I want to leave you on. I am getting out here earlier, at least I think I am. That's what it looks like to me. So for those of you here in the U.S., happy Easter. And for those of you who are ahead of us in terms of the time zones, go to bed. You got to get up for work in the morning. All right. It was wonderful having you here with me. We're going to take a look at a slideshow on the way out. I hope to see you next time, and in the meanwhile, have a terrific day.